Okay, so picture this, a solid block of marble, just sitting there, uncarved. Most folks would just see a rock. Michelangelo, he saw something more, something incredible. He famously said, "I saw the David in the block of marble at the very beginning. My sole job from then on was to remove everything that was not the David until only perfection was left." Kind of makes you think, what kind of masterpiece is hidden inside you just waiting to be uncovered?
That is a powerful image, and it really sets the stage perfectly for today's deep dive. We're going deep into Believe It to Achieve It by Brian Tracy and Christina Stein. It's a book that's like a practical guide for anyone who wants to break free from those doubts and limiting beliefs that kind of cloud their potential.
Yeah, absolutely. And for all of you out there always looking for ways to learn and grow, this book is packed with some serious insights into how to actually do that. Our goal here is to pull out the most valuable advice, the real aha moments, so you can absorb this knowledge and start using it right away. No overwhelm, just practical steps you can take to really grab the reins and achieve more of what you're capable of.
What's really interesting is how thoroughly the authors cover this whole journey of unlocking potential. We'll be exploring why so many people feel stuck in this state of what they call quiet desperation, how much our thoughts and beliefs shape our reality, the power of forgiveness and letting go of the past, how to not just deal with change, but master it, the huge role our relationships play in our well-being, and finally, the 7 core principles they lay out for achieving real success in any part of life. It's a deep dive into what truly empowers us.
Right on. So let's dig into why so many of us feel stuck. The book starts with that Michelangelo story. And it's more than just inspiration. It really drives home the idea that everyone has this incredible potential inside, a masterpiece just waiting to come out.
It's insightful how they contrast that with this feeling of quiet desperation. Think about it. So many people, even with tons of opportunity around them, still have this nagging sense that they're not living up to their full potential. There's this underlying dissatisfaction, like they know there's more within reach, but they just can't quite see the path to it.
To make this real relatable, Brian Tracy shares his own story. He started with almost nothing, limited resources, didn't finish high school, worked tough jobs. But through a shift in his mindset and this relentless pursuit of growth, especially in sales, his life completely transformed by the time he was 30. It's a powerful reminder for anyone feeling held back by their background that upward mobility isn't just a dream, it's a real possibility.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Tracy's story really underlines a core theme. Change is absolutely possible. The book uses this great analogy of a Mercedes carburetor. So he achieves this big goal, buys his dream car, this high-performance machine, and at first he's thrilled. But then a mechanic finds this seemingly tiny problem, a small part installed wrong. It's subtly holding the car back. Once that's fixed, the car's true power is unleashed.
It's such a vivid analogy, right? Just one small adjustment, like identifying and fixing a limiting belief you have about yourself, can trigger this huge, almost unbelievable improvement in your performance and your whole life. It's not always about these massive changes. Sometimes it's that one key, maybe hidden tweak that makes all the difference.
This brings up a really important question. If this potential is within all of us, and these relatively minor adjustments can have such big results, what's holding us back? The book digs deep into the power of our minds, starting with the basic principle of cause and effect.
Right. The authors explain that actions always lead to specific outcomes, which seems pretty obvious. But then they make this crucial connection to our inner world. Our thoughts are the initial causes, and the conditions of our lives become the effects. It's a very direct relationship.
And what's so insightful is this core idea that you, the listener, become what you think about most of the time. They call this the foundation principle, and it really underpins so much of their advice. If your mental energy is focused on your aspirations, on visualizing positive results, your actions and your whole energy naturally start to align with those goals.
But the flip side is true too, isn't it? If your mind is constantly battling worries and negative self-talk, you're probably going to see a very different set of outcomes in your life.
Yeah.
It's like that guided missile analogy they use. Your thoughts are the internal guidance system steering you towards your target, whether that target is success or something else.
Exactly. And building on this is the law of belief. Whatever you deeply believe and feel emotionally invested in tends to become your reality. Our beliefs act like powerful filters, shaping how we see and interact with the world. As William James put it, belief creates the actual fact. And this goes beyond just wishful thinking. It's about those deep convictions we hold.
Christina Stein shares a great example of a client who, despite having outward success and a comfortable life, felt deeply unhappy. Through working together, they uncovered this ingrained belief that he had very little control over his own life. This fueled his constant pessimism and anxiety. By helping him see areas where he did have control and reinforcing that belief, his entire outlook shifted. He became way more optimistic, And as a result, his life experienced a huge transformation.
This story shows the power of perspective, doesn't it? Choosing to see events and our own abilities in a different light can be a turning point for anyone. And the book also touches on these more subtle but influential laws, like the law of sympathetic resonance, the idea that we're naturally drawn to people and situations that mirror our internal state. Think about walking into a room where everyone's excited. That energy can be contagious. It's a real-world example of how, attracts, when it comes to emotions.
Yeah, that piano string analogy is so easy to picture. Strike one string, and the corresponding string on a piano across the room starts vibrating in response. It's like that instant connection you feel sometimes when you meet someone new.
And then there's the law of vibration, which says that everything in the universe is basically energy in constant motion vibrating at different frequencies, including our thoughts. This suggests that our thoughts emit these frequencies that attract similar frequencies back to us, shaping our experiences.
Okay, so we're starting to see how powerful our minds really are. But the book gets specific about identifying and dismantling those internal roadblocks that hold us back. Limiting beliefs.
Here's what's crucial for you to understand. Those self-limiting beliefs, those negative assumptions and doubts we have about ourselves and our potential, they're often not based on reality at all. They're simply beliefs that we've, for whatever reason, come to accept as true.
And where do these beliefs even come from? The book talks about how a child is born essentially as a blank slate, like a tabula rasa. No pre-programmed beliefs or opinions about themselves or the world. Every belief we develop is learned, either directly through experience or indirectly through the influence of others, starting from when we're babies.
It's fascinating to contrast this with the natural, uninhibited state of a child. They are born with only two innate fears, the fear of loud noises and the fear of falling. All other fears, like the fear of failure and the fear of rejection, are learned responses, often unintentionally reinforced through repeated interactions, especially with parents or caregivers.
Think about how spontaneous and free young kids are. They express joys, sadness, curiosity without a second thought, totally unconcerned with what others think. But then through well-intentioned but sometimes harmful parenting, constant prohibitions like stop that, don't touch, even physical punishment, they can start to develop this fear of failure, this I can't narrative.
And then there's the fear of rejection, which the book links to the experience of conditional love. When a child learns consciously or unconsciously that love and approval depend on meeting specific expectations, they start to believe their worthiness is tied to external validation, this I have to. A way of thinking becomes ingrained and often shows up in adulthood as oversensitivity to the opinions of others.
The authors even dive into this idea of love deficiency, and how a perceived lack of unconditional love in childhood can have these significant, though often subtle impacts on adult challenges. It's like a calcium deficiency leading to physical weaknesses later on. The emotional scars of a love deficiency can surface in our relationships, our self-esteem, our overall well-being.
This leads us to the concept of self-concept, which the book breaks down into three parts. Self-image, how you see yourself right now. Self-ideal, your vision of who you want to become. And most importantly, self-esteem, that fundamental sense of how much you value and like yourself. The authors emphasize self-esteem as the foundation of our personality and the core of our emotional strength.
And going back to those basic fears, the book highlights that our main negative emotions usually boil down to two anxieties. Fear of failure, which often becomes fear of loss in adulthood, loss of money, health, relationship status, and the ever-present fear of rejection, of not being accepted or belonging.
Christina Stein offers a really helpful insight about public speaking anxiety, which is a common way this fear of rejection shows up. She points out that in most cases, your audience actually wants you to succeed. They're there to learn, to be entertained, to connect, not to judge you harshly. Shifting that perspective can be really freeing for anyone dealing with that kind of anxiety.
The book also has this thought-provoking exercise. Imagine for a moment that you have zero limitations, especially financially. What would you do differently in your life? What would you stop doing immediately? This exercise can really show you how many of our decisions are actually driven by fear, not genuine desire.
Stein shares a story from a professional workshop she led, where most of the participants, very accomplished people, admitted to feeling like they needed more of something, more qualifications, experience, knowledge before they could confidently go after their bigger goals. It shows how even successful people can be held back by this feeling of not being enough.
This connects to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, doesn't it? The book talks about how those basic deficiency needs like survival, safety, belonging need to be met before we can really focus on those higher being needs like self-esteem and self-actualization becoming all we can be. If those basic needs feel shaky, it's hard to move forward and unlock our potential.
Exactly. When we feel insecure or lacking in those basic areas, it takes up a lot of our mental and emotional energy, making it harder to focus on personal growth and our higher aspirations.
Okay, so we've looked at some reasons why people feel stuck, the power of our thoughts and beliefs, and the impact of limiting beliefs. Now let's shift to how to break free. The book puts a lot of emphasis on letting go of the past through forgiveness.
This section starts with 3 key mental laws. The law of emotion, which says everything we do is driven by emotion, and importantly, we can only consciously hold one dominant thought, positive or negative, at a time. Then there's the law of habit repeated actions. Both mental and physical become ingrained habits. And the law of substitution, which gives us a strategy for change. We can replace a negative thought with a positive one.
Building on that, the authors talk about these 2 mechanisms in our brain. The success mechanism activated by positive thoughts focus on goals and belief in ourselves. And the failure mechanism, which kicks in automatically when negative thoughts and doubts take over. It's almost like negativity is our default setting, unless we actively choose otherwise.
It's really important to grasp this idea of detaching from specific rigid expectations about outcomes. While it's natural to have hopes and plans when things don't go exactly as we imagined, it's easy to get caught up in anger, disappointment, or frustration. The key is to stay flexible and open to the possibility that things might unfold differently.
And now we come to forgiveness. The book strongly emphasizes that being able to forgive others freely and completely isn't just a virtue. It's a defining characteristic of a fully functioning, emotionally healthy person. Throughout history, the most remarkable individuals have reached a point where they hold no resentment or animosity toward anyone.
And it's crucial to address a common misconception. Forgiving someone doesn't mean condoning their actions. It's not about excusing them or letting them off the hook. It's a deeply personal act, something you do for yourself. It's about freeing yourself from the corrosive effects of negative emotions and letting go of the hold that past hurts have on you.
The authors introduce this idea of rewiring your buttons. When something triggers a negative memory from the past, instead of automatically reacting with that same negative emotion, you make a conscious choice to substitute a positive and more constructive thought. They even suggest using a phrase like, God bless him or I forgive him her and wish him her well. It's about actively changing your emotional responses.
And they identify 4 groups of people we often need to forgive. Our parents, people from past relationships, anyone else who may have hurt us, and maybe most importantly ourselves.
Forgiving our parents can be a big challenge for many people. There might be deep anger or resentment about things they did or didn't do when we were growing up. But the book reminds us that our parents, like all of us, were doing the best they could with what they had at the time. They were products of their own upbringing and experiences.
The story about Bill and his ex-wife illustrates this perfectly different. Bill realized that his ex-wife was constantly using her difficult relationship with her mother as an excuse for her own negativity decades later. It highlights how easy it is to cling to past hurts, often blaming others for our present problems.
And the book references that powerful scene from Good Will Hunting where Robin Williams' character says, "It's not your fault." It perfectly captures how holding on to past traumas, even those we're not responsible for, can keep us trapped and prevent us from moving on. Forgiveness is about choosing to release that burden.
Regarding past relationships, the book offers this perspective. Sometimes incompatibility isn't anyone's fault. People change their paths, diverge, they grow in different directions. It's not always about blame. Sometimes it's just accepting that a relationship has run its course and moving on without carrying unnecessary emotional baggage.
The authors also talk about the impact of holding on to regrets, those if-only thoughts that can weigh us down. Then they introduce this framework for personal growth with 4 levels: self-disclosure, honestly admitting our mistakes and imperfections; self-awareness, recognizing and appreciating our good qualities; self-acceptance, embracing ourselves fully, warts and all; and finally, building on that self-esteem.
And the final, often overlooked stage of letting go is taking responsibility for any harm we've caused and sincerely apologizing to those we've hurt. The book mentions Alcoholics Anonymous's practice of making amends, emphasizing how acknowledging our past actions and trying to repair any damage is crucial for our own healing and growth.
The book has this profound idea that we as individuals actively give meaning to everything we perceive. Like Shakespeare said, nothing is but thinking makes it so. It's our interpretation of events, not the events themselves, that shapes our emotional reality and how we respond.
This leads to the concept of learned optimism based on Dr. Martin Seligman's research on explanatory style. It suggests that we can develop a more optimistic outlook by changing how we interpret events, especially negative or challenging ones.
The author suggests an exercise of reinterpreting childhood memories through a more positive lens. The story about Brian Tracy's wife seeing his father's behavior in a different, more compassionate light shows how reframing past experiences can change how we feel about them now.
The book also introduces this comforting idea of a great power that loves you and wants the best for you. It encourages us to face the truth about our situations instead of resorting to denial, which often fuels stress and anxiety.
They even touch on lessons reported by people who've had near-death experiences. Common themes emerge, like being asked, "What have you learned in your life?" And "How have you increased your capacity to love?" This really highlights the importance of personal growth and human connection.
One key takeaway is to actively look for the potential benefits or lessons within difficult situations. As Emmett Fox said, great souls learn great lessons from small problems, average souls learn rather less, and foolish souls learn nothing at all. The book introduces a tool called the disaster report for managing worry. Define the worry, consider the absolute worst outcome, assess if you could live with it, and then take action.
And finally, in this section on letting go, they introduce zero-based thinking. If you had all the knowledge and experience you have now, would you choose to start doing something again? This sheds light on our tendency to stick with things because of sunk costs, the time, energy, or resources we've already invested, even if it's not serving us anymore.
That's a freeing perspective. It gives us a way to detach from the past and make more conscious choices about our present and future.
Absolutely. Now, life is rarely static, right? It's constantly changing. So the book naturally moves to the topic of mastering change, not just enduring it, but actively adapting and growing through it.
This chapter starts by stating a basic truth. Change is the only constant in life. They share Einstein's story about giving the same exam every year, but having to change the answers. It shows how quickly knowledge and circumstances change.
The authors point to three main drivers of this accelerated change: the explosion of information, the rapid expansion of technology, and the ever-increasing global competition. It often feels like we're running faster and faster just to stay in the same place, like the White Rabbit in Alice in Wonderland.
Exactly. And the Queen's quote in Through the Looking Glass, "It takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that," really captures how important continuous learning, skill development, and adapting to new realities are.
And it's not just our work lives. Change affects our personal lives too, relationships, health perspectives, as we and those around us grow and evolve.
The key message is to anticipate change rather than being caught off guard when it happens. As Peter Drucker said, the very best way to predict the future is to create it. The book highlights mental preparation, encouraging us to visualize ourselves responding well to potential changes.
They introduce extrapolatory thinking, which is looking ahead, considering potential future events, and then coming up with different options and strategies so we can have more control when change happens.
The magic wand exercise, where you imagine a perfect future in all areas of your life, and the idea of idealization, where you create a detailed vision of that future without any limits, are presented as powerful tools for planning and preparing for change.
And a critical part of mastering change is accepting full responsibility for preparing for the future we want. It won't just magically happen. We need to take ownership and be proactive.
The authors also stress the importance of analyzing setbacks and difficulties during change. They reference Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance, and importantly, they add a sixth stage, what can be done. This shifts the focus from just processing the emotions of change to finding solutions and moving forward.
W. Clement Stone's response to problems, that's good, really embodies this proactive mindset of looking for the positive aspects and lessons within challenges.
They also talk about the negative impact of dwelling on if-only statements and share William James's wisdom. The first step in dealing with any problem in life is to be willing to have it so. This speaks to the importance of accepting reality as a starting point.
The book points out that the fear of loss is often a much stronger motivator than the desire for gain, which can make us resistant to change. The key to overcoming this, they suggest, is accepting reality, stopping self-pity, and taking full responsibility for navigating the change.
And that leads to a solution-oriented mindset. As Charles Darwin observed, it's not necessarily the strongest or smartest who survive, but those who are most adaptable to change. The book encourages us to rethink our situation when we face resistance and be willing to leave our comfort zone.
They introduce the idea of restructuring our lives based on the 80-20 rule, focusing on the 20% of activities that give us 80% of our desired results. They also discuss re-engineering, simplifying, and streamlining things to improve efficiency and reduce complexity.
And one of the most empowering ideas is regular reinvention. Imagine starting over in an area of your life with all the knowledge and experience you have now, The dynamic of growth lies in the cycle of challenge and response, where every change and obstacle is an opportunity to learn, adapt, and improve.
So the key to thriving in a world of constant change is to embrace it, look for the opportunities, and continuously adapt our mindset and skills.
Absolutely. And a big part of thriving comes from the next area the book explores, the quality of our relationships and the principles for building strong, fulfilling connections.
This chapter starts by emphasizing a basic truth. Our relationships are central to our happiness, health, and well-being. And it begins with self-awareness. You are the most important person in your own life. How much you value yourself. Your self-worth deeply affects your entire life experience.
What's insightful is the connection they make between our self-worth and how we interact with others and how they perceive us. They offer a simple yet profound key to successful relationships. Strive to make others feel important and actively work to build their self-esteem.
Daniel Goleman, known for his work on emotional intelligence, highlighted empathy and valuing others as crucial. The book gives us the 5 A's as strategies for nurturing self-esteem in others: acceptance, appreciation, admiration, approval, and attention.
They give examples for each. Acceptance is liking and valuing people without judgment. Appreciation is expressing gratitude for their contributions. Admiration is offering sincere compliments. Approval is acknowledging and praising their efforts. And attention is truly listening when they speak.
They emphasize the power of active listening, pausing before responding, asking clarifying questions, paraphrasing to confirm understanding. They even suggest a feedback exercise for couples to improve communication.
What's important to remember is that practicing these behaviors not only lifts up others, but also boosts your own self-esteem. The more kindness, empathy, and warmth we give, the more positive feelings we cultivate within ourselves.
The book then digs into key elements of healthy relationships: mutual respect, admiration, trust, open communication, shared values and goals, and handling conflict constructively.
They address common relationship pitfalls too, like constant criticism, complaining, negative expectations, self-pity, and incompatibility.
They share the 99-to-1 rule, reminding us that people are mostly focused on themselves. So we shouldn't stay in unhappy relationships just because of what others might think. Our well-being matters.
They touch on differences in communication between men and women, which can cause misunderstandings. And they reinforce that self-esteem is the foundation of all healthy relationships.
So nurturing our relationships, making others feel valued and appreciated, it's not just good for them, it's fundamental to our own happiness and well-being.
Absolutely. And all of this leads to the final section of the book, the 7 key principles for achieving success and fulfillment in any area of life.
This is where they tie everything together, emphasizing the importance of filling our minds with thoughts, words, images, and emotions that match who we want to be and what we want to achieve. They lay out 7 areas where clarity is essential for unlocking our potential.
First is values, understanding what you believe in and stand for. They encourage values clarification and making decisions aligned with core principles like integrity, courage, persistence, generosity, compassion. They emphasize that your actions reveal your true values more than words.
Second is vision, creating a compelling mental picture of your ideal future. Actively imagine and visualize what you want your life to look like long-term.
Third is mission, defining your overall purpose in life, your reason for being and contributing to the world.
Fourth is goals, setting SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound in all important areas of life, and creating action plans to reach them. They outline a 3-step process: define what you want, identify potential obstacles, and determine the knowledge and skills you'll need.
Fifth is priorities, figuring out what truly matters and managing your time and energy to focus on those high-priority tasks. Effective time management is about life management, choosing how to sequence your actions for maximum impact.
Sixth is results, being laser-focused on achieving tangible outcomes and concentrating on high-impact activities that give the best return on your time and energy, aligning with that 80-20 principle.
And seventh is self-esteem. The authors explain the connection between self-esteem and self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to succeed. Achieving successes, even small ones, builds self-esteem, and higher self-esteem allows you to tackle bigger challenges, leading to more success. They encourage recalling past achievements to reinforce this cycle.
It's encouraging that they point out that everyone in the top 20% of any field started in the bottom 20%, that almost all skills are learnable. It busts the myth that some people are just naturally more successful. It's about commitment to learning and improvement.
They strongly advocate for personal development and lifelong learning. They also highlight the importance of positive mental input, reading inspiring books, listening to uplifting content, surrounding yourself with good influences, and the importance of healthy habits like good nutrition and exercise.
Ultimately, they remind us that you, the listener, are inherently important and your potential is limitless. Their final message is about releasing self-imposed mental limitations and striving for excellence, which leads to fulfilling your unique potential.
So to sum up, Believe It to Achieve It offers this empowering message. You have immense potential within you. By managing your thoughts and beliefs, processing and releasing the past, embracing change as an opportunity, nurturing your relationships, and applying these 7 key principles, you can create a more fulfilling, successful, and meaningful life.
Now, for those of you listening or watching, what 1 or 2 insights from our discussion really stood out to you? Take a moment to think about how you can use those ideas in your own life. Maybe try that disaster report exercise, or spend some time visualizing your ideal future with the magic wand exercise.
And for our YouTube viewers here on Book Reviews 1, we'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. What were your aha moments? What questions do you have? Feel free to share this deep dive with anyone who might benefit from these insights.
Definitely. And if you found this exploration of Believe It to Achieve It helpful, please give us a thumbs up, hit that like button, and subscribe to Book Reviews 1 for more deep dives into impactful books.
And one final thought-provoking question. Since your beliefs shape your reality, what's one belief you'll choose to cultivate starting today? And remembering Michelangelo's vision of David and the marble, what's the first small step you'll take to reveal the masterpiece within you?